Episode 4 is really talking about going into the comfort zone of millennials. And what we did notice across culture is there are two areas they really go into. And the two areas would be travel, and the other one would be gaming. Travel for the millennial is really about pursuit of the ultimate. They will travel maybe to Germany to taste the best beer or to Japan to taste the best beef. So that's why there's so many specialty shops now where you go. This is really because this generation is so passionate about learning a skill that they really go into it.
And I tell you, in Bangkok, they have tons of Japanese restaurants. But that's not enough. They have this forum called Pantip, where they like break down Japanese restaurants that you have to go to in Japan. So that's one thing that I've learned from the studies, the ability to immerse in a place. And for Tom Cleary, for him, it's really staying in one place as opposed to his parents who kept on transferring and moving from one city to the other. For him, it's just staying and in Spain and understanding the waves to the point where when a local asks him for directions, it's his time to move on to a different surf town.
Let's talk a little bit about how much photography is integral to the enjoyment of the millennial travel. The fact that travel is not considered complete until you have a photograph of the experience.
So to them, it's always being able to share that experience.
I think for a millennial, it just heightens the whole experience. So that's also why they put effort into writing poetry with their posts. It's part of also making it interesting to other people. That's the whole travel experience. They don't just take pictures to record. They take pictures to elicit emotions from others, and that in turn affects their emotions too in a very positive way. The other area is gaming. What gaming really does for the millennial is it helps them work through their problems, because in the world, in the physical world, what happens is they're always told what to do. Okay? They're always told how they should reach a solution. And the one thing that the millennial really resents is not being able to contribute, say, this is how I can solve the problem.
When you say gaming, for non-millennial, it's like a different reality. In the millennial world, they have no difference between online and offline. To them, it's just one stream. And when they go into games, it's almost like they're going into a different zone where they are in control. Sylvia's from Jakarta, and when she's in Sims 4, she says she can be the me I want to be. I can wear different colors. I can be this girl and that girl. And she says that it seems to be more fun to be in the game than to be this regular student. She's been able to find inspiration from Sims in building her wardrobe or even interacting with her colleagues.
Mhm. So there's this aspect of being able to try on life when you're in a game. You sort of practice it.
You remember, we have one millennial who said that his gaming friends are his true and real friends because we have a true connection. We understand each other more. So their relationships now are not just physical, but it's that connection that they find.
So the insight that they had to struggle to get to for this very challenging code was the idea of fantasy as therapy and travel also as therapy. This is the way that millennials keep their sanity. That's why we entitled it Going into Their Comfort Zones. And
Mhm.
they're not comfortable in their daily life, But in these worlds of travel, in these worlds of gaming, that is their world, and that is where they feel most comfortable and most themselves.
Why anthropology? Because brands aren't just about consumers, they're about people. Because brand engagement isn't just about being different, it's about being meaningful. Because real insights stem not from mere responses, but real stories. Because today's market research gives general consumer insights, not what moves real people. Because anthropology isn't simply why consumers use a brand. It's about understanding how brands become meaningful in the lives of real people. Because anthropology considers not just demographics and psychographics, but also life stage and culture. Because anthropology goes beyond just collecting interview answers. It takes the time to participate and observe the subconscious things people do that shape the way brands are valued. Because anthropology not just analyzes a person's brand preference, but also the webs of significance that allow people to judge the value of things and services that add meaning to life. Because anthropology deals not with a narrow approach of consumer brand relationships done by classic marketing research, but answers the need for a more holistic perspective to understanding people. Havas Anthropology, collecting the stories that let us understand the why of people's lives and help our brands do more to become meaningful in their lives.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth Epicode of the Millennial Codes Unlocked Lockdown Edition. This afternoon, we will be discussing the fourth code. It's not the end of the world, and how the lockdown has affected their traditional comfort zones, and which used to be travel and gaming. Pero na-lockdown sila lahat. So what happens next? So that will be an interesting discussion for today. But first, I'd like to thank everyone who's been joining us for the past several weeks and following our Millennial Codes series. But for the benefit of those new viewers, and so just so that we're all on the same page, this is how we define the millennials. Demographically, we define millennials as those born between 1980 and 1999. So they should be around 21 to 40 years old by now. And the older batch are now middle to senior managers with more voice in the decisions of their organizations and as a consumer. They have more purchasing power. So may gravitas na sila ngayon in the community. So as a segment, the millennials now comprise more than 30% of our current population. So getting on with the show, joining us today are three panelists. Our first panelist is one of the country's leading applied anthropologists and a Filipino worldview expert. I've spent 16 years with her now, and the way we've tried to change the world, at least my world, is that instead of looking at consumers and markets, we're studying people and culture. And so that's, I think, made quite a lot of difference in our world. So this allows us to have a more intimate understanding of people, which led to deeper insights for our brands. So I'd like you to first welcome our director of applied anthropology at Havas Ortega Group, Miss Gaya Beyer.
Hi, Hoss. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Gio. Hi, everybody.
Our second panelist is one of the pioneers of brand planning in the country. She is, as the CEO of Brand Lab, she is the preferred consultant of chairmen and CEOs of major conglomerates who are seeking to transform their businesses. Please welcome our planning consultant at Havas Ortega Group, Ms. Vicky Ortega.
Hi, good afternoon, Hoss, Gaya, Gio. Nice
And
to be here. All of our audience too.
All right. As with all our epicodes, we always invite a millennial to represent their generation and for us to even learn more about them. And today, we're privileged to have a freelance photographer by day and content creator by night. He is a viral success with his YouTube channel. And what he does is he unboxes gadgets and plastic figurines. He's also in the gaming world. He plays Nintendo and is a gaming enthusiast. So we are glad to have with us today Mr. Gio San Pedro.
Gandang hapon, Hoss. Gandang hapon, Vicky. Gandang hapon, Gaya.
All right, Gio, welcome. Looking forward to
Thank
our
you.
discussions.
Likewise.
I'd also like to welcome everybody again, and I'd like to invite all of you guys to be part of our conversation today. I'd like to ask you to ask questions and write them on the comment box on our Facebook page, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can today. So let's proceed with our discussion on millennials today. So what's happening right now is that the millennials are on lockdown. They're still living large virtually by the fourth millennial code of into the comfort zone. Although they're at home, they can go places by immersing in the virtual world. So they're practicing physical distancing, and which is a must. But social distancing is also made possible. So they convene, they connect, they make social circles using their screens. While being apart, though, they can get together for parties, movies, play games, and have fun in the virtual world. So staying home doesn't mean that you cannot really come out as in their worlds, but using technology at their fingertips, they can take the trips from the comfort of their couches. And to the millennials, it seems that, at least virtually, the lockdown is merely a suggestion. So this is a big code with lots of things to discuss, and let's go dive straight into it. So Gaya, I wonder if you can give us the framework for this code.
So, millennial find comfort in gaming and traveling, allowing them to live large and be in charge. There are two areas, or these are the two areas, gaming and traveling, where the millennial has the latitude to go beyond borders and boundaries. For some, they look at it as therapy. For others, it's the only place where they can really be in control. Uh, they're able to transcend limits and go beyond what has been made available to previous generations. So everything becomes explorable and where they can fully immerse themselves and live the motto, my world, my rules.
All right, so we're still in my world, my rules. Thanks, Gaya, for establishing that framework. So let's now put let's. I'd like to now put some context to the discussions today. It really asks the question: what happens when millennials are forced to stay at home amidst this global pandemic? So that's the context that we're in right now. So my first question to the panel is this: how does the millennial continue to find comfort in a physically confining space? So I wonder if Vicky, if you can take this question.
Well, what's interesting is that although they're now in a small space and really physically confined, they still are able to explore and go on adventure. The interesting thing is that while travel is restricted, and while we think that the only adventure is to go to the grocery or the drugstore to buy essentials, this thing about being or immersing themselves in other cultures, that's still very possible through the digital world. Also, this thing about adventure. Adventure doesn't have to be confined to where you are. Adventure can be anywhere, and they can still get that feeling of that thrill, that fulfillment by, taking an adventure or going on a trip in the digital world. So the millennials, being digital natives, have been able to reimagine where their comfort zones are. So right now, the lockdown hasn't affected the comfort zone. It's still the same for the
Mhm.
millennials.
All right, thank you, Vicky. Um, the comfort zones that we normally have, the comforts from our previous study, the comfort zones have been more on gaming and travel. No? Let's tackle both topics. No? So let's start with gaming. Gaya, what have you learned in terms of the talking to the respondents, and what's the world of gaming like for them within this code?
Well, cause to them, this time that they spend playing games is never seen as just play, or that it's a mindless activity, and it's allowed them really to kind of deal with issues in what they call transfigured form. So you're like being able to learn certain skills, be responsible, perform tasks, and solve problems. So they tell you that there's so much meaning hidden in the games they play that when they are able to discover these meanings, it's like, wow, a very important moment that they feel like they've won something, right? Like they've been able to succeed in unlocking a secret that probably they did for the first time, and they're able to kind of like enjoy that and pleasure of success. So it's like a life-changing experience for them that they want to keep on going back to play the game.
All right, thanks, Gaya. Gio, I'm going to bring you into this conversation. You're a gamer. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Hoss, it really goes without saying, that before everything else, the game should first be fun. Kasi kung hindi siya fun, why bother? It's the universal minimum requirement, at least for me. Now, if it delivers that, yung fun, only then could it try to achieve something more than just fun, tulad ng mga na-mention at na-enumerate ni Gea earlier. In my case, that something comes in the form of needing to go on an adventure.
Mhm.
Uh, that's why if I try to recall yung mga games na pinaka malapit sa puso ko, it's usually the ones that really immersed me. The ones that make me feel na it is I who is going on an adventure, na it is I who first discovered this part of the map because no one forced me to go in this direction. Na this is my story because I have total freedom and control on where I want to go. Games where getting lost is actually part of the experience because the map is so vast, it's so lively, it's so lived in, it's so varied. Yung mga games na may logic sa kanilang environment, like kapag sabihin nating umuulan, namamatay yung apoy. Kapag for example kumikidlat, 'wag kang gagamit ng espada kasi bakal 'yon, eh, makukuryente ka dahil kumikidlat. So yung mga gano'n. And another thing is, yung mga games that let me figure out the solution by myself, that let me solve problems my way. As in, there's no ano ba, predetermined solution imposed by the developers. To the point na parang iisipin mo na kahit yung developers hindi naisip yung solution na naisip mo, which is a very fulfilling and satisfying thought. Sa sa mga nanonood na naglalaro rin, I think it's quite apparent na what I've just been describing is the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch. To share lang, host, no, the game was released more than 3 years ago na. But it is still my favorite and probably my most played game ever. I still visit it from time to time. In fact, I found myself visiting it during the quarantine. It's actually been both a compensation and a consolation nga, given the situation right now. Kasi times like this, when we are not allowed to go outside, this game provides me the means to do just so, to explore the wild, as per the title, to feel the air, to turn every stone for a surprise. Yung mga nakapaglaro nun, magigets yun. To climb mountains or actually almost anything given the right stamina eh. Uh, to literally go places that I can see on the horizon. There's no invisible wall that locks me out or cages me in within an area. And finally, to battle formidable, very hard, very difficult, but at least visible enemies. Dito, I'm the hero. Ako yung bida, ako yung protagonist. I solve the world's problems, or at least I can do something that can change things for the better. It's in this sense, host, that this game or games like this are my comfort zone, my my form of escape, because they let me do what I wish I could do in the real world right now.
Okay, Gio. Thanks. May follow-up question lang ako. Medyo corny pakinggan, pero curious lang ako.
Okay.
What do you feel when you're playing?
Okay, okay, sige, host. Medyo corny lang din pakinggan yung sasabihin ko. But actually, when I play it, it feels similar. It feels familiar, like how home feels familiar, because I got to be a part of it. Gets nyo ba yung parang feeling of parang ano, of attaching oneself to this particular place? Parang ganun yung nararamdaman ko whenever I visit it again eh. Um, I'm reminiscing about the game now, and ang interesting kasi hindi ko siya maalala, hindi ko siya naaalala as just graphics in front of the screen. In my mind, it honestly registers as an actual place. As in, ganun yung rehisto niya sa utak ko. That's That's how immersive this game was.
Okay, thanks, Gio. Vicky, what's your reaction to what Gio just said?
Oh.
You're on mute, I think, Vicky.
Sorry about that. I think it's really interesting the way the games affect the emotions and the psyche of the millennials, and that's as Gio mentioned, that's what can give them a lot of comfort in this time when we're all struggling with being confined in one place, and we're all struggling with the fact that life is changed. And when we do start to go out into the world, it will be all unknown. I think what's interesting to me is the games really hone the problem solving abilities of those who play them. And if there's any skill that we need in this new world, it's going to be that sense of curiosity and that sense of and that skill of problem solving, even though maybe the solution was never determined, no? Because right now, when you go out into the world, there are no predetermined solutions for us. So at the same time, as Gio said, where it's fun, it is also it's an opportunity to learn skills. And don't we all start out that way? We learn skills by playing games, and even psychologists acknowledge that play is one of the most effective ways of learning. In fact, more and more teachers are now using activities that engage students in play, because it allows for not just young students to do it, but for a lot of intergeneral cooperation. So there's much to learn from the gaming world in terms of, how we can move forward in terms of problem solving, learning, looking for solutions, etc. And it's all supposed to be fun. I think that's what we need, because if we're too serious, oh my gosh, we just get into fights and frustration.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Vicky. I was just related something about learning. I was in a chat with one of our business directors at Havas Ortega, si John Loqui, and she was talking about her son Marco, and Marco was sharing with her that, hey mom, I've been playing Assassin's Creed, and it's a historical French Revolution story or game. And and Marco claims that he passed social studies because of his learnings from Assassin's Creed. So mukhang may saysay yung may historical value yung game na yun. It actually helped him pass. No, I mean, I was fascinated. Napawaw lang ako when I heard that story. Gaya, let's move on to another benefit of gaming. How you've done a lot of interviews with several millennials. How else has gaming impacted the millennials, especially now in the lockdown situation?
Gaming too, Hoss, is a tool for bonding. Uh, Pre-lockdown, your life is busy. You're most likely doing your own thing outside the home. And Bonnie was saying that now that he is with his family members, and they're forced to physically sequester together, playing the game allows for common ground and opportunity to spend time together. Bunny and his brother said that being boys or men, they're not much about talking. So when they're playing, it allows them to kind of catch up. It's like the pressure of the conversation is taken away, and they're just allowed to be brothers. Max uh, shared that his dad never understood why it they like playing games. He and his siblings, because the father never had that luxury of time to play the game. So this lockdown has forced both father and son to find something that they can do together. So I guess the father finally gave into his curiosity, and Max found a way to get his father to play with him by introducing him to game Gran Turismo, because Max's dad loves cars. So they said that they were able to um, kind of find a common um, point, and he found it so amazing. It's changed his relationship. It's made his father understand that even the game that Max plays with his cousins allow them to bond while in lockdown.
All right, cool. Yeah, finding friends, finding new relationships, and actually bonding with your father. Quite an interesting story. I got another question for the group now. And again, still let's stick with gaming muna for a while. No? And just pushing, I asked about feelings kanina. No? So ito naman isang tanong ko pa. Um, my next question is playing in the virtual space therapeutic? So, Vicky, I wonder if you want to take a crack at this question.
Yeah, I'll take a crack on that. I have two main points to make. One is, sometimes we go around, and if you sort of like eavesdrop on little conversations during that time when we didn't have to be 2 meters apart, and you could still go to National Bookstore and feel safe being, with others, you would always hear this phrase, "Don't judge me." And apparently, it is a phrase that is whether or not you're choosing a ball pen, a dress, or making a business decision. Those of the millennial age will always say, "This is my decision. Don't judge me." Okay, so in the gaming, when you're inside the game, there are no judgments. As Gio has explained to us, there are no predetermined solutions. You
Mhm.
can go for something, and nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder saying, "That's not right. You should have done this. That's correct. Yes, do more of it." So I think it allows more of the personal creativity to surface, no, and a lot of confidence. And then I think the second one is, as Gaya and Gio have been mentioning, gaming, because sometimes, um, you see others who are in the game, you can relate better. It's for non-millennials, it can be a little strange, but you know, um, people can meet because of a game, can start conversations even if they don't know each other. So it sort of transcends social isolation. So I remember early on when I was talking to a young millennial, maybe about 7 years ago. I was giving some career advice, and I was told by these young millennials at that time, "Oh, it's okay. You know, we have to do this on our own terms." So now I think that was a phrase for before, and I may be told, "Oh, that's so last century." Now the phrase is, "Don't judge me," and I think the gaming world offers that.
All right, thanks, Vicky. Gio, ikaw naman. Anong thoughts mo dito?
Uh, well, first of all, I agree po kay Vicky about the no judgment thing. Kasi in this space, tulad ng mga na-mentioned earlier, we can experiment, we can try out different solutions, and totally fail, but without real-world consequences. But when we solve the problem or win the round, shoot all the enemies, the satisfaction, the fulfillment can be just so great. Sometimes it could even be cathartic at the end of a mission, because during the moment the stakes felt real, and to succeed in it is it gives such a release in tension. Also, host, I think people are naturally delighted at things being built and completed.
Mhm.
Uh, Games like sabihin nating Minecraft or yung latest Animal Crossing come to mind. As in, Animal Crossing has sold so much this quarantine, parang 13 million in just a few weeks. Uh,
Mhm.
Kasi feeling ko, yun nga, we are naturally delighted on things being built. Kasi parang, siguro for me, parang hobbits tayo, di ba? We share the love for things that grow. Tulad ng sabi sa movie. We derive satisfaction from the process of creation. The best of games are also emotionally therapeutic in the sense that they evoke healthy and meaningful feelings from you. Video games, for me, are an art form. And just like any art form, puhunan din ng video games ang emotion. Uh, Zelda wouldn't have registered in me at all if it weren't for its emotional effects. Those feelings of warmth, reminiscing, freedom, and sometimes even yung, how do I put it? Nostalgic na melancholy. Wait, sige,
Okay.
explain ko, wait lang. Um, Sige, sa Zelda game kasi, yung Zelda installment na sobrang in love ako ngayon, it presumably happens thousands of years after the previous games. So when you explore, you see familiar places that you might have gone to during the previous installments. But the thing is, they are now in ruins. Since they're destroyed. The game, so ibig sabihin, the game also tries to make you feel the loss of what used to be, of what once was. It's sad, yes, but like Gandalf said, di ba? Not all tears are an evil.
Okay. Thanks, Gio. Just follow up lang, Gio. Paano mo ngayon, nako-connect mo ba yung virtual and real world? I mean, just in as
Ah,
experience gaming.
ah, ah, hmm. Well, I mean, kung maging literal naman tayo, almost all games naman take inspiration from the real world. I mean, real places, real people, real cultures, events, problems, and even emotions, themes. Uh, I am a Pokemon guy, as in Pokemon Crystal was my first game. It was the first game I've ever owned back in siguro kailan ba? 2001. So medyo matagal-tagal na, 'di ba? So back in high school around 2007, I got to watch one of the Pokemon movies. And central to the plot of the story was this um, majestic church-like structure that I found just so unique and so frankly un-Pokemon. As in parang hindi siya, as in ngayon ko lang siya nakita sa mundo na yon. So I got curious and researched about how the movie was made. Turns out that the production team traveled to Barcelona to get some references. And the structure in the movie that uh, uh, intrigued me turned out to be inspired by this still unfinished basilica called the Sagrada Familia by the late Anthony Gaudi. Yeah, Gaudi. Um, I was so mesmerized and got instantly in love with the Sagrada Familia, and the discovery had such a profound effect on me na I seriously almost considered, hindi pa nga considered, as in, I almost chose architecture as a course and a career track. As in,
Wow.
nakapasa na ako sa UST Archi, as in, nag-research na ako, munti ka na magpabili ng AutoCAD kay Papa. Gano'n na siya ka-close. Gano'n na siya, gano'n ka-profound, gano'n kalakas yung impact niya sa akin. And even to this day, I still hold the late Gaudi as one of my idols and heroes in terms of giving your all for your art. Even now, I see architecture as my unlived life, as my profession, kumbaga in another universe, in another timeline. Kasi nakakatawang isipin nga, host, na it wasn't my school, it wasn't my teachers, it wasn't a priest, it wasn't our church that introduced me to Sagrada and Gaudi. It was Pokemon. At mas nakakatuwang isipin na it's because of Pokemon that I almost chose a course that my parents would have much preferred over the course that I eventually took, which was communication arts. So parang ang hirap is, kaka-video games mo yan. Yan tuloy, munti ka mo nang piliin yung course na mas gusto namin para sa'yo. Kunwari lang. So that's my personal instance where the virtual connects with the actual. I guess a more universal instance of this would be that video games offer this one lesson to everyone. Na there's always a solution to a problem. Diba? It's been recurring throughout this conversation because yun nga yung parang para sa akin yung universal moral ng video game. And frankly, it should be applied by everyone in their lives.
Okay. Thanks. Okay na, nag-iiba na ang mundo. No? So Assassin's Creed allows a millennial to pass his social studies class, and Pokemon almost got you into architecture.
Architecture. Yes.
Alright.
Weird.
Uh, Vicky, si Gio touched a bit about lessons in life. Parang pumapasok na ito sa storytelling. So, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, and I think the games now are really almost like the fairy tales or the fables that I used to read as a child. No, I love them because it brought me to different places. What's so great right now is that you can actually see a 3D representation of the story. And even more so because of technology, you can be part of the story. And that's what's so, I see now, why it's so fascinating. It's probably not for me. Um, I'll still stick with my books. But the games today are the storybooks. No? And it's really about storytelling and what it does for you. And even from before, um, you know, we've always used stories for many purposes. One is to relate history, another one is to make lessons more understandable. Let's say to little children or to another audience. But storytelling is a very powerful tool. And I think that's what the game developers have developed now. It's come very, very far from what games were before, where they were literally mindless. And you use them because you didn't want to think. But for somebody like me, and I'm a self-confessed lifelong Trekkie, um, I see the Star Trek, all of the Star Trek episodes like that, and they really engage me, and I watch it over and over again. Um, Even though the technology looks dated, no, and it looks dated because of when it was shot, the stories are timeless. So you watch them over and over again, and you learn so many lessons as you keep on watching them again, and you hope that one day they'll reshoot it so the technology will catch up
Nice.
with the time.
Mhm.
But I think games are like that right now. I don't know if I'm correct or not, but Gio can
Yeah,
add.
I agree.
Thanks.
So much.
Okay. Yeah, no, just lang, titikwas lang ako ng konti. It's like, because Gay and I were also having a separate conversation. And we are talking about gaming in a lockdown situation. And the thing is, on one side there's gaming, and then the other side there's social distancing. And Gay was trying to explain to me kanina how gaming is transcending social distancing. I wonder if you can share some stories that you have on this issue, Gaya.
Well, now it's like a new normal world, host. So um, events as you know them no longer exist. So things that you normally do in real life, um, while on lockdown, you can do in a game. So, for example, is exist together, self-expression, and the game offers that sense of place. You can host parties, play basketball, even hug. So, uh, for example, Leo was saying that uh, before the lockdown, there weren't as many players in his universe. But now it's increased. People are attracted to what the games provide, whether it's to decompress, maintain social bonds. Um, when you play a game, there's this voice chat that happens, and while you're in deep concentration and there's long periods of silence, uh, you feel that companionship. So it does also help make you feel less isolated and less alone. So Leo said that unbound by laws of gravity, he can jump from place to place, asteroid to asteroid, until he finds that home where he can build his palace on. A palace that has all the things he wants, which he doesn't have in his room while on lockdown. So he does accept that where he is physically sequestered with, he admits that he doesn't really get along with the people he's physically sequestered with, his family, household members. They don't really kind of start understand each other. But what the game provides him is the opportunity to reach out and be comforted by those who play with him, right? And while he may not be adjusted in the physical world, the gamers he meets and connects with in his games provide him what he calls that safe zone, where he can be able to express what he thinks and feels, just like what Vicky said, without being judged.
All right, thanks, Gaya. Gio, can you relate to this?
Hmm. Well, host, I'm more of a ano kasi, I'm more of a solitary gamer. As in, I hardly go for multiplayer when playing. So I don't get to interact with other players that much within the game, to tell you honestly. But that doesn't mean I don't interact with other people about games. On the contrary, video games tend to be my jump off point during conversations with friends. Questions like, sabi natin, "O, anong level ka na sa ganito? Sang mapa ka na? Nakabili ka na ba ng ganito?" Uh, those questions can be used as more intimate greetings in exchange of the usual hi, hello, kumusta.
Mm-hmm.
even as a solitary gamer, video games still provides affinity between me and my friends, even others na hindi ko pa talaga kaibigan. Uh, Aside from that, the simple fact of knowing they're online like you, even if you're playing a different game or not playing at all, it's quite comforting and gives off this sense of soft connection na at least in the quiet of the night, you're not alone. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of uh, trash talks and blowing of steam na mention ni Gaya, well, um, I consider gaming kasi as a sacred space. So as much as possible, I stay away from those bad jujus. Um, kung may pagkakataong makapaglaro with others, like sabihin natin colleagues sa work, kasi minsan may switch naman sa office. Dapat in real life goods kami, no? So kung magbo-blow off kami ng steam, dapat on the same side kami. Kami yung dapat magkakampi na kunwari, grabe ang hassle ng project natin, no? As in, dapat kami yun against the world. Siguro, host ang pinakamalapit na experience ko na yata na nakipag-away ako, yung before pa, as in yung nag-share pa kami ni Kuya sa PlayStation dati. Pero ngayon, halos hindi na ulit nangyari kasi when my parents bought me a Game Boy for me, yun, ang umiral na lang is yung asaran tungkol sa Nintendo versus Sony kasi mas Sony kasi siya eh. Mas PlayStation siya
Okay.
ako mas Nintendo.
Uh, okay. I'm gonna. So you have the Sony and Nintendo
Mhm.
conversation. Paano itong yung let's talk a little bit about brands naman, no?
Oh.
Since di ba, we're into gaming and you know it's a marketing
Yeah.
show, pare. So,
Yeah.
ano yung so let's
Touche. Okay.
how do don't be honest, right? So how do brands, how do you feel when how do brands communicate with you while you're playing? How do you feel when that's happening when you're in the
Mm,
game and there are
mm,
brands around in your environment?
mm. Well, again, so again parang 'di ba medyo good question, no? Kasi medyo sacred space kasi talaga yung video games sa akin eh. Well, for one, I think it should be inoffensive to the eye. If a brand wants a way in their material should at least be aesthetic. Ideally, it should look good, hindi lang basta salpak. And it's generally safe kung hanggang cosmetic level lang yung utility or yung use ng brand mo within the game. One good example is the parang branded customization for the game called Rocket League. Brief background sa mga sa inyo host. Rocket League is basically a football game but using remote control cars with rocket boosters. Kasi yun yung gimmick niya. Sin sobrang saya niya and very very skill based. In that game, minsan may mga branded vehicle bodies or antennas or decals na players can choose from that really just contribute to the aesthetics of the players' cars. It doesn't add to the performance. Ang maganda nga kapag maganda yung mga gawa sa asset ng isang brand is may pagkakataon piliin ng players sa pagko-custom niya yung mga assets na yon. I mean, kunwari ako, madalas basta cool tignan yung isang design, yung pinipili ko. As in sa Pokemon, kunwari, basta maganda yung parang move animation niya, minsan hindi ko siya tinatanggal dun sa parang choices of moves ko. Kahit parang hindi siya ganun ka-effective. As in, ganun minsan ako ka-shallow and superficial pagdating sa video games ko. So next is siguro is that brands should be compatible with the game. And by that, I mean swak siya dapat kunwari sa tema, sa storya, sa settings, sa environment ng isang laro. Kung hindi, it's gonna be an eyesore and would definitely disrupt a player's suspension of disbelief. So, sira ang immersion because of your brand. Nako, lagot ka doon. Kunwari, yung game, medieval, yung settings, pero nagpumilit kang pumasok kahit smartphone brand ka naman, di ba? So, para may disconnect. A brand should try to be as seamless and as unobtrusive as possible. Wag maging tacky, wag maging tactless, and do not go for the option that could disrupt the gameplay. Kung ayaw nilang maging negative pa yung effect ng placement nila pagdating sa sa conversion. um, last is I guess to the brands, please don't make yourself the hero of the game. Don't make your branded weapon the mighty solution to my problem in this campaign. Hindi ikaw ang bida. Remember, ako yung bida, the player. At most, you can just be there in the environment, in the crowd. In that context, I might associate you with my triumphs because I saw you, nahagilap kita during my moment of victory. Whenever I try to recall those moments, diba? But don't be the solution. You're stealing my spotlight. Again, um, I recommend talaga looking up how product marketing is done in the game Rocket League. Since they do it wisely.
Right. Dami kang sinabi doon, Gio.
Sorry.
No, tama yun. I think listening to the real users is really the way to go for us. No? Vicky, you're in the brand world. Lessons on this and any suggestions you may have for brand people right now.
Yeah, I think I just want to pick up on the point Gio made about aesthetics. Branding is not limited just to the name. We always think about, oh, it should be the name and everything, but the whole thing, aesthetics count, no? Like for example, you know, the visuals that the mnemonics that go along with the brand, but most especially colors. Example, no, yung sinabi ni Gio na, halimbawa, medieval yung yung game, no? Paano papasok yung brand? Hindi pa naman uso ang smartphone noon, di ba? So, but during the medieval times, the knights would have their colors, their banners. They would engage in tournaments. So, brand colors can be very prominent there. And if the brands are creative enough, sometimes maybe the initials can be there, no, as part of it. But of course, dapat medieval din yung execution ng initial. So there's a lot of room for creativity of brands in the games, no? Especially part of the storytelling. So my recommendation to brands out there is, right now, while we still have time, think about what your brand story really is and how you're going to look at and how you're going to find the games that are bagay, no? So, as an opposite, let's go into Rocket League. Baka yon mas interesting, no? Kasi may decals. But again, may colors na naman yan eh. Pwede yung colors ng car, yung colors ng banners, whatever you apply, no? So, even more so now, aesthetics and design come into play when you're thinking about how you're going to be part, no? Like for example,
Yeah.
I remember before, if you think about what is a good instant noodle, everybody says the one in yellow packaging. Ano kaya yon, no? Yung nag-umpisa nun, 'di ba? Anong yellow packaging? So, if you look at what is in the instant noodle um whatever aisle in the supermarket, halos lahat ng brands ngayon may kulay yellow, 'di ba? Kasi alam nila 'yun ang importante. That's what communicates quality. So colors are a huge part of it. Graphics are a huge part of it. So a lot of room for brands to be in games, but they have to be just as creative as, let's say, the developers.
Okay, thanks, Vicky. We can talk about gaming forever. I think we've spent almost an hour now just
Yeah.
talking on
It's so
gaming.
fun.
But meron pa tayo isa pang ano, I have one more question because I think the comfort zones of the millennial is gaming, a good part of it, but pre-lockdown, the another really big one was travel. So I want to cover this, but I wonder if we'll cover it briefly lang siguro because of the lack of time that we have already. But I still want to tackle it because this is something that the millennials, travel was everything for them. Like they spend so much time, their piece of fare, booking it one year in ahead, looking
Mm.
for all these Instagrammable locations. So it was a big experience for them. So the thing is, the question I have now is that now that travel is banned, how has the millennial evolved this comfort zone? Ano yung nangyari? Ano ginagawa nila ngayon with regards to travel? Vicky?
Um, the millennial has gone online. They're now exploring the digital space for travel experiences, and before people begin asking but how, hindi na allowed yung airline travel. It's not the same being just online and being in that place. Yes, of course it's different, but there's certain things that make travel a very memorable experience. No? And part of what the millennials I have learned from just observing millennials is they're very passionate about being part of the culture, being part of the story. So personal encounters for them are very important. And having just gone through a sofa safari about a week ago, I realized that even though I was just looking at pictures, it was the story of the person who was taking me through that sofa safari that were important. So while I have never been to the remote areas of South America, um, I feel like I've been there because of the photographs and the stories. And that was like, when an hour came to a close, I felt like, wow, Bitin, I still want to go pa. So I think, that's just a small part of how the millennial has been able to continue to explore the world and personally experience cultures. No? And, maybe I'd like Gaya to continue the story because I know that she had a very interesting story about Airbnb experience. Sorry if I'm using a brand right here. Gaya?
Oh yeah. You know, one thing about the millennial, Vicky, is that sure they want to go for an experience, but these days they don't want to be the passive viewer from the screen. It has to be interactive, and that's what that brand you mentioned has been able to provide uh, to Marie. So Marie is able to go on tours from her screen, but she's taken by a virtual guide and she's accompanied, right, by fellow travelers who speak different languages, um, and also interact with her. So this gives her this glimpse into their different backgrounds, something that she finds immense pleasure in. She It's like stepping into a movie and going through an intense and moving journey. Uh, it's a treat, but it's inexpensive, and so as well as ingenious. Uh, and unforgettable because she's still able to document her journey and talk about it and post about it, because if it doesn't, you don't talk about it, it that hasn't happened.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks, Gaya.
I
Yeah,
agree. Totally.
thanks, Gaya. Gio,
Mm.
I'd like to find out, like, how have you been affected by the travel ban during this lockdown?
Oh, well, I also got to travel din naman before the quarantine. In fact, we were even booked to fly out the day after the lockdown announcement came. But the thing is, um, almost all my travel hosts, including ito na naudlot, are really just for work. Eh. I have always been more of a homeboy, and so my primary means of travel has always really been the internet. Most especially now, actually, kasi not just because it's quarantine, but also because I've just started making content for YouTube last year. Um, what's interesting, Hos, is that when the comments started coming in, some were writing in their own languages, as in mapa Korean, mapa Japanese, even Arabic. There was this one guy who wrote in Spanish, and as it turned out, he was living in Honduras. This hit me na kasi as far as he is concerned, I realize he is watching the video in his country, in his own place, and therefore it was only natural for him to write in his own language. So we are now, parang in this age now, we have this technology. We have now the infrastructure uh, where something far is near, so, something that's there can be here, and something that is here can be everywhere and at the same time. As in, my content becomes my proxies that instantaneously travel not just in one place, but almost everywhere. That gives me much more chances to connect with people all around the world with similar interests. The internet talaga gives us the power to go beyond limits of time and space as far as traveling is concerned. Parang sci-fi, pero in a way, totoo. Kasi Rome and Tokyo could just be a few Chrome tabs apart. Diba? You don't have to consider logistics. You don't have to go along a very hectic tour schedule. So you have more opportunity to not just look around, but also learn about the history more intimately, the culture, and people who are the ones that actually give significance to those places.
All right. Thanks, Gio. We have quite a lot of questions coming around, and I think we're also running a little bit of a little longer because of all the nice passionate discussions we've been having. But I'd like to give we have a lot more to discuss, but I'd like to give the viewers a chance to be part of our conversation. So I'm going to start fielding some of their questions. No? And fortunately or fortunately, it's a lot of gaming questions. No? So I will swing around. Pero there's one that I thought was really interesting, and I thought it was worth discussing. This is a question from Julian Maile, and his Julian said, "Hi, yes, agree that gaming can be therapeutic and it can be emotional for millennials." His question is, can too much gaming be a deterrent to their mental health? So, Gio, parang para sa iyo to.
Nahatsi ka agad. Okay,
Sino ba?
um, well, for me, no, anything naman in excess will actually be will actually be harmful to you. Um, for example, sa pag-exercise, if you're exercising too much without rest, it wouldn't have much effect. And as a matter of fact, baka maging detrimental pa nga yun sa parang sa goal mo. Um, uh, too much too much reading sometimes parang would not would disable you to process what you've just read. And in video games, parang for me, playing video games is essentially good eh. Katulad ng mga na-mention natin earlier, it has its use. And lalo na ngayon, parang video games help people stay in their homes. So as in that sense, parang it's the responsible thing to do to actually play video games kasi it saves lives, 'di ba? But I do get the notion talaga na parang meron pa ring stigma yung video games about being detrimental, right? Especially from older generations. And it is I can see where they're coming from. That's why I'm kind of proud that gaming, just like everything else, has been evolving to be more inclusive. As in, this year, parang hindi mo may imagine 10 years ago na parang people who really likes this game called Doom are in alliance with people who are fans of Animal Crossing. As in, there's parang as in, nagmamature na rin yung community as gaming evolves. Tandaan kasi natin na video game is one of the youngest uh, media forms of medium sa next to film and music and whatnot. And I'm also proud na sa pagiging Nintendo ko, pagiging Nintendo fan ko, because they are at the forefront of really expanding what it means to be a video game. Case in point, siguro last generation, mga mid 2000s, as in they found out in their studies na gaming in general is shrinking. Now, there are three players in the industry right now, one being Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. Sony and Microsoft kasi meron silang fallback na mga industries eh. But Nintendo only has video games. So it is in their interest to expand the market. Dun nabuo yung concept of Wii Fit, of Wii Sports, to make it more inclusive and to expand pa the definition of games. So
Okay.
to that end, yeah, I think video game is essentially a good, but too much of anything, including video games, will really be detrimental.
Okay. Thanks, Gio. Let's go to travel naman. I have a question here from Inita Sohal. And her question is for everyone. I guess, the travel industry is heavily impacted by the lockdown. Should they dabble in virtual realities and include in their bigger picture moving forward? Vicky and Gaya, maybe you can tackle this one.
I'll go first. I think yes, definitely they should. But again, creatively, no. There are so many now. I think the museums were way ahead, because one of the ones that are most impacted would probably be museums. Nobody will go anymore because these are places of mass gathering. So they definitely went online. Whereas you kind of think, no, that would be unthinkable for a place such as that to go online, but they definitely did because um, they can give a different kind of experience online. As one of the stories Gaya related would be is like, maybe in real life you can't get really close up to the to a painting, famous painting like Mona Lisa, but maybe during the museum tour, they can give you a more intimate and close up view of, very precious paintings, no? Because obviously when you go to the museum, it's either there's a cordon, there are too many tourists, everybody's trying to take a picture, etc. So there are many other ways, and I was just thinking about this. Um, for example, now our home is our own whole environment for now. Maybe later on it will expand, but it doesn't
Vicky, I think you're
Sorry,
actually.
I've been talking and talking. I think, definitely the travel industry should go into it, like the museums have done. It's a totally different experience, but, places like the museums can offer a more intimate view, let's say, of precious artworks that you maybe can never get close to. Case in point, like the Mona Lisa. You would never be able to get close to it because of the cordon, because of the glass. But certainly, people who want to show it off would be, giving you a closer view. There would be people guiding you, telling you the history of the paintings, and that actually is quite engaging, no, and creates this whole experience. And there's nothing to stop the resorts, for example, in the travel industry from helping people create a resort feeling in the home, anywhere from food to setting the mood to setting lights, for example, because for now the homes are are um, our castle. So definitely, I think there's a lot of room for creativity for the travel industry in terms of reaching out to people who are in their homes and probably now desperately need a vacation from their own homes.
Gaya, have you heard of anything related to this in any of your interviews?
Well, the word staycation has a different meaning now
Okay.
in quarantine, Hoss, and how the millennial will convert the room into a different experience guided by the screen. So if you're like Irene, who found travel restorative for the soul, she's now able to do yoga, practice yoga in different places, whether it's Bali or India. And she's not alone, she's with fellow yogis as well, right? So it's almost like traveling healthy. So yeah, it has to be immersive, but Hoss, beyond that, it must be interactive. That's the crucial element for travel brands. Oops, I talked about brands, but that's the most crucial
You're
element
forgiven.
for for the millennial. That's the critical ingredient, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks.
um, just for a point, I agree with Gaya, and somebody
Mhm.
just told me the other day that there now may be a different meaning to the word homesick, whereas before you were sick because you wanted to go home. Now there are a lot of people who are sick of their home. So, there's definitely room for the travel industry there.
Mhm.
All right.
Mm.
Lots of questions, and we want to answer all of them way over time now. So, what I can do now is, we promise maybe as a group, we can go into the questions and comment section after the show,
Ah, yeah.
and we'll just
Mm,
answer it over there na lang.
mm.
But thank you very much for participating in the conversation. So that now gives us time for our last few words. No? So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to please say their last thoughts on this topic of comfort zones amongst the millennials. Gaya, may I start with you, please?
So this code shows how the millennial does keep their world in large through digital living. So whichever screen interaction they're on, theirs is not, again, as I emphasize, a passive presence. And gaming and travel is their means in this lockdown to fully immerse themselves. They are in control, and that is how they are able to live in my world, my rules.
Thank you, Gaya. Vicky, your last words, please.
Gaya, I think, mentioned earlier on this thing about being immersive. And I just like to add on to that, that it's very important for, when you think about marketing, the storytelling is so important. But it's not the storytelling where I tell you the story and I just listen to you. It's like, tell me a story that I can participate in. So that's the difference now in storytelling. You know, People like to be able to enter the story and be part of it, and not just as a passive participant in the story, but active, active maybe in finding a solution or following a map, in the same way that in our generation we used to enjoy game boards. I mean, technology will now allow us to be part of the whole landscape and environment. So that would be my what I'd like to share, especially with those who are managing brands.
Thank you, Vicky. Well, Gio, the millennial gets the last word.
Thank you. Well, host Vicky and Gaya, I just want to say that I love and appreciate this initiative so much. Helping digital migrants translate and even understand the language of the digital natives, so that assimilation can be much easier once immigration finally becomes sabihin nating inevitable and necessary. Personally, I also realized during this discussion that the generations before us, aren't as different from us. It's just that we have our own ways of solving problems. Finally, as a gamer, I'd like to thank you guys for giving me the platform and opportunity to share my perspectives kung paano nakakontribute yung video games both personally and potentially commercially.
No, thank you also, Gio. We learned a lot from you today,
Thank you,
and
thank you.
we're grateful. As for me, some of the learnings I've gotten from this whole conversation is that it's obvious that the millennials are truly finding comfort, able to find comfort in this crisis, and they still have their comfort zones. Gaming is there. It's as we've discovered, gaming transcends social distancing, and as Gaya said, it's a tool for bonding. And in terms of travel, travel is now not just a physical endeavor anymore. It is now a pursuit of the ultimate experience, which now opens floodgates to many other opportunities. Now, if I look at it naman from a marketing perspective, the first point I want to make is that in a quarantine age, which in my opinion, controversial sometimes as it may be, is the quarantine age will last for about 18 more months in some form or another. So until this vaccine is found, we're going to be in kind of sort of this kind of different variations of a quarantine scenario. So as we live through this quarantine era, as we would call it, entertainment now takes the center stage. And entertainment in this case would be gaming and even travel in an online space. So whereas before it was nice to have, today it is now a vital need. Entertainment now becomes a vital need in a quarantine scenario. So that was my first, I think, recommendation. That's my first recommendation for brands. The second recommendation I would have for brands, and I'm going to take a lesson from our millennial over here. Brands, be part of the experience. And I will follow that up with this. The other thing that Gio and Vicky said, brands, don't forget who is the hero. Malaking bagay yun.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, because tayo yung gumagasta. So, eksena tayo. Siya ang hero yung brand. Pero brands, hinay-hinay, let us accept sino ba yung hero, supportahan natin yung hero na
Yes.
manalo siya. No?
Agree.
So let's remember the player is still the hero. So I thought that was a very enlightening, nandun na siya, pero, I think Gio just, said, ito na yun. Ako yung hero. Huwag kayong makiagaw eksena. Okay? So thank you. Maraming salamat. Thank you, Gaya, Vicky, and Gio for your insights and your personal experiences and all your wonderful stories today. And I was having a lot of fun just listening to all your the stories that you were sharing. I'd also like to thank our co-producers of this program, the Adobo magazine, and I'd also like to thank you, our viewers, for continuing to in our journey of understanding the millennials. So join us again next week for our fifth Epicode, which is Welcome to the Me Show. And we will now look into the language of the millennials. I'm sure there are new terms that have come about, and Vicky and Gaya have already mentioned some of them today, and I'm sure there are many more. And new twisted definitions of existing terms will come about. We'll also find out where they are now. We know that millennials have a different platform for their different sides of themselves. Nasaan na sila ngayon? So, hahanapin natin sila in our next episode with another millennial guest. So, see you again next Thursday, 3:30 p.m. This is Gio Ortega, and this is the Millennial Codes Unlocked Lockdown Edition.